Hi all, my name's Mark. Oh fuck off, I can't do this.
Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max. Mark Talks Max.
Jim Morrison is dead. Yep. This time I'm looking at July the 17th, 1971. Melody Maker again. And although the headline is Beatles for UN gig, which I'll come back to in a minute, the main photograph on the front is of Jim Morrison. A door closes. So the rumours which spread around London last week were true. Jim Morrison is dead. The lead singer of the Doors was found dead in his bath by his wife Pamela in their Paris apartment on July the 3rd. But the fact of Morrison's passing was kept a careful secret for several days. The headline, on the other hand, Beatles for UN gig, is all about the concert for Bangladesh, which here it's just been announced that the first ever scheduled performance by Beatles since the group stopped touring in 1966 will take place at New York's Madison Square Gardens. George Harrison and friends, including Ringo Starr, Leon Russell and Klaus Voormann, will play two shows, which, if I remember rightly, was a matinee and an evening show. And proceeds will go to United Nations Fund for the refugee children of Bangladesh. Of course, what wasn't said then was that Bob Dylan turned up, Eric Clapton turned up, although he wasn't very well, and so did many others. So, quite a thing, that one. Let's look at the singles chart for that week. Number 1, Chirpy Chirpy Cheep Cheep, Middle of the Road. Number 2, Coco by Sweet. It was Bubblegum Week. Moving on down, Bannerman, Blue Mink, Black and White, Greyhound. He's Gonna Step on You Again, John Congus. What a classic. And here's one of my favourite ever singles, I'm Gonna Run Away From You by Tammy Lynn. Northern Soul classic. Number 10, Monkey Spanner, Dave and Ansel Collins. Not quite as good as Double Barrel, but still a classic. And so on and so on. Oh, number 22, Leap Up and Down and Wave Your Knickers in the Air by St. Cecilia. In other words, Jonathan King. God, that man was everywhere then. You just could not get away from him. Straight in at number 27, one of the first singles I bought, Devil's Answer by Atomic Rooster. A classic then and a classic now. Number 1 in the albums charts, Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney. Number 2, Tarkus by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Less said about that, the better. Number 4, Bridge Over Troubled Water, still there. There's some classics in here. The album charts today wouldn't be like this, believe you me. Onto the news page, Deep Purple, 12-day tour and album. And then Duke Ellington will make a 6-day, 2-concert tour of Britain. This is a jazz musician in what we would regard today as a rock music paper. It was just covered everything then. There we go on page 4, a full-page ad for a concert of contemporary and traditional folk music at Topham Manor Park, including James Taylor, Tom Paxton, Incredible String Band, Sandy Denny, Steel Eye Span, Buffy St. Marie, Pentangle, amazing, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, incredible. What's happened here? Ginger Baker. Ginger Baker has joined a Nigerian Afro rock group. This was just when he started getting into the African music. Be back on the road later this month with Nigerian musician and group leader Fela Ransom Kuti. Went on to do very, very well with him. Vincent Crane has left Atomic Rooster. This week's ban. Mott the Hoople are the latest group to be banned from London's Royal Albert Hall following their debut appearance there last Thursday. The ban comes because fans were dancing in the loggia boxes around the hall, and in 2 boxes the roof immediately below caved in. Good on you, Mott the Hoople. Then we have a page of jazz, which we'll swiftly go past. Then we have a full-page ad for Vertigo Records. All of these will be worth a few bob now. First issues on Vertigo Swirl. Not so much Gentle Giant, but Ramesses and Heads Together, they certainly would be. The Raver, that was sort of the comedy page in Melody Maker. New pop singles, let's have a quick look through these. Frank Sinatra, Lady Day, was the main single featured in this week's pop singles. It says a lot, doesn't it? Mary Travers, of Peter, Paul and Mary. Looking down through them, good grief, I haven't heard of any of these. That was a bad week. Crystal Palace Bowl Garden Party 1971, featuring Elton John, Fairport Convention, Rory Gallagher, and bottom of the bill, Yes. They obviously weren't the monster they became. Then we have Jazz Scene, Dionne Warwick Today, then a full-page obituary on Jim Morrison, which we won't go into. I could read that all day, I suspect. Pop albums: Donovan, The Marquis, Burt Bacharach, Dave and Ansel Collins, Double Barrel. And incidentally, as my friend Dave constantly tells me, it's not Dave and Ansel Collins, as in brothers. It's Dave and Ansel Collins. So there's a little bit of information for you. Not Dave and Ansel Collins, as in brothers. Dave and Ansel Collins. Caught in the Act, we have Carole King. Blind Date, which is where you get an artist listening to various tracks by various artists. And here this week we've got Hurricane Smith, who was listening to Bob Dylan, Al Cooper, the James Gang, Dave Edmunds, James Taylor, etc. Then we have Caught in the Act, the live page. Mott, Britain's Grand Funk, ? Of course, this was a good time before they were on the verge of splitting up, and Bowie famously gave them All the Young Dudes. They were a well thought of live band, huge live band. Mick Jones from The Clash, he followed them all around the country, but they weren't making any money, and it took Bowie to sort them out. The Louis Legend, that's Louis Armstrong. 4 pages of Louis Armstrong. Melody Maker's Guide to Budget Records. And we've got a whole page on that too. And then we got, interestingly here, we've got it even in 1971, we've got the stirrings of punk rock 5 or 6 years later are already happening. We've got Brinsley Schwartz mentioned and Eggs Over Easy. These were pub rock bands, which famously is so say where punk rock started in this country. So even in 1971 there were the stirrings of that in London pubs. And we get towards the end here. News from the heart of the music scene. Keith Hartley. Then towards the end in Melody Maker at this time there was always Folk Forum. Very important to Melody Maker. And then Club Calendar. So we've got bands here. That's just pull a few names out of the bands that were appearing that week. Mungo Jerry, Medicine Head, Status Quo, Lindisfarne, Groundhogs, Brinsley Schwartz, as we said. And another couple of pages of that. So we go on to the last page, letters page, the headline, The Great American Disaster. And that's a letter from Alan Merrick of Streatham, going on about Grand Funk Railroad being overrated. What do you think? Until the next time.
Rock Talks Max.